everybody, Steve here, Philosopher Cards. Thanks for coming back to the channel. The hat's off, but the news is good. We've got an interview here today for you with Jonathan. This is kind of part 2, where we go into some deeper technical questions on the Cardmill device that is currently out on Kickstarter that you can back. It's a card sorting machine that will, you can put cards in and it'll do all kinds of sorting. Jonathan has generously offered you guys a discount off of the Kickstarter bundle. If you go out to cardmill.com/philosophercards, it'll forward you off to the Kickstarter page where you can actually go and select the secret Philosopher Cards bundle. And when you select that bundle, you'll get $50 off the heavy lifter, which is really exciting. In this video today, we're going to actually go through the beginnings of Cardmill. How did Jonathan come up with the idea? What are some tech specs of the actual hardware itself? What are some of the limitations and accessibility options on the API? And finally, what does long-term Cardmill look like? What are some of the future features? How does the company looking for several years out? So it's a really exciting video. Stick around, and don't forget, you have 7 days left to back the project on Kickstarter. So don't miss out. Go out there, read all the materials on it, and if you've ever been interested in a sorting device, whether or not you're a player, you're a collector, or you're a seller on TCG Player, now is the time. This is an excellent opportunity to get in early on this product and back and get some nice discounts in the process. So let's take a listen. All right, we're back with Jonathan, the founder of Cardmill. So welcome back here, Jonathan.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. I mean, since last we spoke, it feels like time flew by, to be honest. I mean, it's been a couple weeks, but what's the update? What's the latest on the project? I think we have 7 days to go, right?
Right. Yep. Exactly. Yep. So at the time of this filming, we're just under 7 days away from the end of the Kickstarter. Ends on August 21st, next week, Thursday at 9 a.m. Central. So it's been a really, really exciting couple weeks, at least, since you and I talked. It feels like so much has happened and it just keeps going, and we're not even done yet. So it's been really cool.
What's the total of Kickstarter at right now?
So we're just over 3,000 backers at $1.46 million in pledges. Wow. We've got the elusive Ghost edition that we're trying to hit at 1.5 million, which I'm pretty sure that we'll hit it either today or tomorrow. But the feedback and the community excitement and engagement with the Cardmill product has just been off the hook, right? It's been really exciting to see. Yeah, and really exciting to be part of.
Yeah. I can't say I'm surprised because, like I said, instantly looking at this, I'm like, there's something here. And we have on top of the screen here for folks to see the different models of the machine. And I've put the Ghost machine from your video that you had out on Discord in the center, so folks can kind of see, when we hit that 1.5, it'll unlock, and we can get that.
And it's going to be really cool, exciting, because the case, the whole enclosure itself is going to be semi-transparent and a bit see-through. So users will be able to actually see everything that's happening, everything from like motors moving to the different conveyor belts or gears, shifting, the card actually moving through the system. And, I think there's going to be some lights on some of the circuit boards as well. So all of that's going to be really visible. You're going to be able to see all of it. It's going to be really cool.
That's really awesome. I mean, I'm excited for it. I'm like you said, I'm sure we'll probably hit it, but I want to put that up there for folks, to get them. If you've considered backing and you haven't done it yet, now's a great time, because there's a lot of unlockables that we have left in the project, and me as a backer, I'm excited to have the opportunity for it. So,
of course,
wanted to kind of do a little something different than we did last time, and maybe talk about how did you come up with this idea? I remember you mentioned about Legos and building this prototype, and I just wanted to talk about that and how did this come to be?
Well, and I'm sure as everyone that's watching this knows that everything, we planned none of this. So I just so happened to have my original proof of concept next to me. So here is what I had originally built about 2 years ago now. Yeah. So we've got everything from...
Are those Kinects? Like on the side?
They are. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I got a little lazy. I could have just trimmed these off, right? But I just kind of left
Yeah.
that all there. We got our, gear, Lego gear, like connects gears, some simple servo motors, all of the wiring and everything on top. I got my little Raspberry Pi here, my breadboard to really kind of connect everything together, the camera module right here. And this was fun because I put like, you can't really see it, but I put like this little button right here. So like, so you press the button and just sort of started the whole system. And different like infrared sensors here. I've got a stopper motor right here. You can see, I mean, it's very rudimentary, right? I mean, I've got, tape on here all over the place, but I actually started, so like when I started with this idea, I was thinking, I'm like, I need some sort of I needed something, and I actually wanted to buy something. And as we've talked before, and as I've
Yeah.
been saying everywhere, everything out there is crazy expensive, right? And so I kind of gave up on the hunt for a little bit, and then I'm just like, no, this is silly. I'm like, what if I could build something? I've been in software development my entire adult career, building websites back in high school, and I I set out to find some information on maybe using like a Raspberry Pi and integrating it with that. And I've always wanted to kind of get into different like Raspberry Pi configurations and playing around with this. So I found an Instructables article, and so this proof of concept is actually based off of that original article. And the guy that created, he provided all the layouts for the different sides of the machine and talked through how to connect it. I did a lot of tweaking in the programming because, of course, as a software engineer, I don't want to take, I'd never take everything for face value, but um, I built. It took me about maybe about a month or two to build the original proof of concept, and then from there, it's just like realizing like, oh, this might actually work. This is actually something that I think a lot of people could use. And that's where I just sort of started talking to other people, bringing other people into the project. And, what started as just something small and looking to kind of build a something just to get my collection organized really just turned into Cardmill that we see today.
Yeah, and the card mill, it's two pieces, right? You have the hardware, which is in of itself important and complex because you don't want to damage cards. You want it to actually physically sort the cards correctly. But to your point, the software behind it is just as important as the hardware. Know if you have any details in terms of how long you spent on the hardware versus the software, or some of the challenges you hit as you were trying to program and do some things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, and you're absolutely right. The hardware is one part of it, and yeah, I do want to touch a little bit on the hardware piece because when we started Cardmill, I always said to myself and everyone that we're working with that we need to make sure that the protection of the cards is paramount above everything else. Like if the machine is not being respectful of the cards that's going into the going through it, there's no point in building it, right? Because
Right.
nobody wants any other cards to get damaged, right? And I hear this a lot from people online, and so excuse me. So we've taken a lot of care to ensure the safety of cards as they're moving through the system. Everything from when the cards are being placed into the hopper to moving from the hopper to the chamber, we're using a non-abrasive rubber to be able to actually move it. And it's all about the minimal touch to the cards.
Yeah.
So that we're because we don't really need to touch the cards a lot. It's like I just need to move the card a little bit from one spot to the next, and then I just need to let the machine and gravity just kind of glide it to where it needs to go. So we use kind of like a conveyor type system to move the card into position under the camera. And then from there, it moves it slightly to a funnel where then just kind of gravity will drop it into the tray, which is also lined with a soft felt to be able to protect it when it falls into the tray. But protection of the cards has been extremely, extremely important for everything we've been doing. Now, that being said, the software side of things is also where a lot of the fun stuff happens, right? So the cool thing about Raspberry Pis and all of these at home circuit boards is we can do a lot of stuff. So we're going to integrate some of the functionality directly into the machine itself, so that we don't always have to connect to our network. So things where someone's like, I just want to sort this by alphabetically by the first letter. Well, I don't actually need to send that card up to my API to be able to analyze and figure out what card it is. I can just look at the card, read the text on it, and then do sorting from there. So there's going to be a few things like that that we will integrate directly into. So we'll sideload the software directly into the circuit board itself. Now, in the API network, though, that's where a lot of the magic happens. So we take a picture of the card and then we stream it up to our API, and without getting into too many details of it, right?
Yeah.
We convert it into a very long string of numbers and letters and numbers, and then the API converts that into more readable format for the AI to then analyze, find parameter or find similarities between other cards. And so it's looking at, like, if we're using like human vision, right?
Yeah.
We're looking at a picture. We've got text, we've got font sizes, we got font styles, we've got images, we've got placement of, like, maybe some sort of a set code or identifiers at the bottom left, like on magic cards, for instance. And all of those different parameters are taken into account, and the machine is trying to find patterns between what we're giving it and what it knows in its system. And when it does that, the cool thing is that it starts to find all of these different files and all these different images that may potentially match what we're sending it. And then it has basically a collection of, dozens to hundreds of, different files. And then it ranks them in a sort of a confidence level and be like, hey, I think that it's most likely this card. And then it says, okay, this is what I'm going to tell you. And it gives us, the highest probability card of what it is. And more than 90% of the time, we're able to actually get the correct card and get the correct identifier. And all of that, and this is the really cool part, all of that happens in a fraction of a second.
Yeah.
Like, it is so quick. But it's crazy too, because when you're thinking about AI technology, the AI technology is waiting for humans essentially to catch up to it.
Yeah.
It's like we've provided maybe like the best technology that we can so far. And of course, there's a lot of really cool stuff coming out of different countries with supercomputers and everything. But the like AI is essentially waiting for us to catch up to it so that it could get even further. If we think
Yeah.
about how far computers have come since the early 2000s, heck, even the last 10 years, they dramatically have increased. And the advent of AI technology has exponentially helped to grow the technology space. So AI is just kind of hanging out saying, like, okay, well, when you guys learn how to make better computers, I will get better at what I'm doing. And even now, it's pretty good,
Yeah.
like at least when it's coming to card identification. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be a wild time over the next few years.
I mean, it sounds like you've actually like built like Quick List from TCG Player, where it looks at the card image and scan. It sounds like you've built it, and
Yeah.
and I wonder too if your confidence in terms of the scanning could actually be better than the Quick List confidence. And it that offers a whole new slew of questions, because I don't think I've thought about this in the past, but do you see that there's a possible scenario that your tech and your device is good, that you could actually end up selling to some sort of a large organization?
I mean, that would be the dream, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, let's be real. I don't want to work forever.
yeah,
I'm building a product because, one, first and foremost, I'm really passionate about it, and I'm passionate about the space. I mean, I remember talking to my dad recently, and he's just like, I remember when you used to go to the card store when you were a little kid, and you would buy just, 1 or 2 packs of cards, right? He's like, I never thought that you would actually do something with it, right?
Yeah,
And it's like, and it's true, because as a kid, I never really thought much about it, and even as an adult, for the most part, I didn't. But I'm doing this because it's a passion. But then, like, I'm also doing this because I want a better future for myself and for my family.
sure.
I want something that I do hope can kind of shift the industry and the community as well, to know that, like, everyone can have a machine like this, right?
Yeah,
That works just as well, if not better, than some of these multi-thousand-dollar machines out there. And I'm not ragging on those machines. Those
sure.
the
Yeah,
devices that are out there are wonderful, and they serve a great purpose. But for someone like me, it just didn't make sense to be able to, or to have, like, a device that's a that large, but then b it's also comes with a huge expense. But getting back to your question, I mean, yeah, if there was an opportunity to, partner, or, for, one of these larger companies to potentially take this over and take it to the next level, I feel like it's only going to help everyone in the industry to be able to have access to, products that, quite frankly, have been limited to really, like, a lot of the big names out there.
yeah. No, I mean, it's a reminder to everybody too to, check it out on Kickstarter, because, this is a tremendous opportunity, right? I mean, to mention some of the other machines, and some of them were, developed, created years ago, and, you've been able to iterate and improve upon some of that technology. You've taken it,
Right.
and we've seen some of the limitations and things that those other machines do, and yours, I think is significantly improved. It's
Right. Right.
like, if folks haven't watched the actual video of it running with the Black Lotus, I encourage you, go out to the Kickstarter,
Yeah.
watch it, because that was one of the first videos I clicked on. I'm like, all right, let's see it run. And
Right.
I'm like, here goes the
Right.
Lotus.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, like, we've had a lot of people kind of, like, as we're going through, gearing up for the Kickstarter, and then actually doing the Kickstarter, and a lot of people would doubt, and rightfully so, right?
Yeah,
It's good to question any new product that comes out. And so I was talking to a good friend of mine, and he's just like, I have an idea. I'm like, cool, tell me. I love ideas. And he's like, what if I let you borrow my Black Lotus and you run it through your machine? I'm like, that's a great idea. And I love that you trust me with your Black Lotus, right? So I'm like, yes, let's do it. So he gave me, so he let me borrow his Black Lotus, a Time Walk, and then, like, about a dozen or so original dual lands. And he's like, if you ruin these, you're gonna have. He's like, I'm gonna kill you. I'm just like, all right, I get it. I'm like, I won't. So I first, of course, like, with everything, and as a developer myself, I trust but verify.
sure.
So I took a lot of, like, bulk cards, right? And I ran it through. So I think, that before we actually got to that clip, I had about 20 different videos that I made of other cards, right?
Yeah,
Just to make sure that everything was working right, because it's also a prototype, right?
right.
It's
Sure.
not the final production build. But so, yeah, when we put it in there, and by that time, felt really good about putting the actual, card in. And as you saw in the video, we wanted to prove that, like, it's a real Black Lotus, right? And so, we did the rosette pattern test and the green dot test. And we also wanted to show everyone that, like, so you'll notice that it's one continuous shot. We made a
Yeah.
point to keep all the cards in the view, so that no one's like, oh, well, you moved the cards or swapped them out or anything like that. But
Yeah, it was really really great to see. I mean, that was one of the moments where I was just like, yeah, this is the real deal. And to move on to the hardware, I just want to touch on that a little bit. Maybe we could talk a little bit about the hardware and specs, and then maybe we get into some of the software that you have and specs as much as you can share, because I'm sure there's some secret sauce there. But with the hardware, I think you mentioned in our last discussion that, you've reached a point in the Kickstarter where everything's going to be, cast, and not printed. in terms of the machine. Has anything changed or any additional insights or thoughts into the actual, material that will go into making the machine?
Yeah, so actually, I was talking to our one of our team members yesterday, and so I was just double checking my notes. So yeah, so
Yeah.
we're going to be able to move to a better quality plastic now.
Oh,
So
wow.
originally we've gone from a 3D printed machine to maybe some of the components being injection molded, some of them being 3D printed. Of course, maybe some pieces like gears and stuff will be able to come off the shelf, but um, the outer enclosure itself is going to be made from like a polycarbonate plastic,
Oh,
which is
wow.
going to be like a better quality, higher quality plastic itself, and we're going to injection mold the entire outer casing.
As
So
one
it's going to
piece.
be well, it's not going to be one piece. So there's still going to be individual
Yeah.
components that are going to be put together, but I mean they're going to be integrated to look to be seamless as possible. Um, but it's going to provide for a much better quality product, right? You can think of it, something that, you'll buy, something cheap from, a local drugstore, for instance, right?
Yeah.
On the, some no-name product to something that's more quality that, has like, big corporation behind it. And we're going to be able to kind of play with, those types of materials now. And so, there's some components on the inside that don't provide any sort of functional or not functional, but they don't provide any kind of um, gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? Visual
Yeah.
that don't need to necessarily look good, right? That we might still do in some sort of a 3D print because 3D printing is the quality of a lot of those prints are still really good,
Sure.
but the majority of this is going to be injection molded. We're going to be using a high quality aluminum for the sheet metal, which is essentially going to create the frame that's on the inside. So even on the Ghost, you'll notice that at the bottom there's
Yeah.
still like a dark like a panel that's not completely see through. That's the sheet metal that's really holding like the base and the machine kind of up, and then everything kind of screws into that. So we're
Yeah.
going to use a better quality material. So ultimately everyone's going to get a better product.
Yeah.
It's
That's,
going to be more durable. It's going to the feel of it is also going to feel nicer, right? Than
yeah.
some of the 3D printed stuff. Now, I mean, I know that some people probably don't care much about that, but the important part of this is really that is the quality of the machine that they're going to get, which I
Yeah.
think is paramount to most of everything that we're doing here.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a huge deal. I think that's awesome. From that, obviously there's moving parts and pieces inside, and so I'm sure there could be some gears or this or that that might need replaced over time with normal wear and tear. Do you plan on having an online store to buy some of the, we'll call, reusable or not reusable, but what is it called, like the
Like
product?
replacement parts.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they call them like, the OEM or like, the manufacturer,
The
actual parts and
wearables,
pieces
kind of
and
like brake pads on
right,
a
exactly.
car, right? Yeah,
Right, exactly. Yeah. So yes, we'll have access to all that. We'll also so like when it comes to support for the machine, it's going to come in a couple different fashions. One is that if there's anything that is not working or someone wants to know how to use something, we're going to have a slew of online videos and documentation that someone can a lot of like how-to videos that anyone can kind of go through. But then if something is not working properly, we'll try to debug and try to resolve issues remotely. If we can't, then we'll have a path for people to be able to send their device in for us to repair it. Um, for components that need to be replaced, whether it be a gear or one of the rods or something that's moving cards around, maybe the tongue that's transitioning the cards from the hopper to the chamber. All of that stuff's going to be accessible to the end user and the owner, that they can replace them themselves, if they wish. But if they don't feel comfortable doing that, then again, that same path to send the device in for repair, it'll be the same thing for this, and we'll work with people to ensure that the devices are working for them. The nice thing about having a device that's also not taking up the size of a kitchen table is that it's easy to get the device back to us, and fairly inexpensive, so that we can provide some of some of the support and maintenance, that may be needed. But we're going to empower the owners as well to be able to do what they can with the units, if they feel comfortable doing it themselves.
No, that's great. And to your point, that is something I think I've thought in the back of my mind, and it never really reached the front, is how efficient the design is in terms of from a space perspective, right? It's very
Right.
efficient in the space it uses. Um,
Right, exactly. Yeah, and it's not overpowering, it's not overbearing. It's something that can sit on most shelves as well. We're preserving the ability to make changes to the machine, but for the most part, the current prototype is about 8.5 inches by 11 inches at its base, and it only goes about 12 inches tall.
oh wow.
There may yeah, there may be some tweaks to this as we get into the final engineering phase that we're doing before production, but it's not going to change much from that. We are exploring potentially using a larger tray and seeing if that's something that we might be able to incorporate as well. So if anything, that might get a little bit bigger, but for the most part, the form factor of the machine is kind of what it is.
Yeah, with the tray, that's actually on my list of questions for you. The
Mhm.
hopper with the extender can do up to 800 cards. And how many cards can the tray fit? Is it 800? And yeah,
Yeah, so it varies by the tray and what sorting method you're doing. And there's also a caveat to all that, which I'll get into here in a second. But the alphabetical tray itself can hold about 15 to 20 cards per slot. And then there's about 26 slots plus an overflow slot of 27. So that comes to about roughly around 450 cards that the alphabetical slot can hold, or tray can hold. And then the 13 slot tray can hold about 45 or 40 to, yeah, it's about 40 cards per slot, which then translates to, roughly around 520 or so cards that it could hold. And it's wild how much the individual dividers take space away from the
yeah,
tray.
yeah,
But then also we can't put all of the card we can't force all the cards to be completely snug in the individual slots without potentially damaging them. So we have to take some room out and give a little bit of leeway there. Um, so when you're using the hopper, or like when you're filling the hopper with the 300 cards, and then you use the hopper extender to put more cards in, the intent of that is really to give you the ability to stage more cards at one time without having to continue to put cards in. The machine is going to keep running as long as there's cards in the hopper and that there's cards to run. So if you put 800 cards in there, do what you need to do with the trays, empty it out when it gets full and continue to keep processing it and keep putting cards in. It's just going to keep running nonstop. It's not like it's going to say like, oh, I've hit 300 or 800 cards, now I'm going to stop. It's going to keep running until it can't run anymore. And that's if there's no more cards in the hopper, or if the individual has stopped the machine. Now with the trays, though, as it's going to keep putting cards into the tray again as long as it can. So it'll stop if one of the bins is too full, or if one of the trays is full. It'll stop and say, "Okay, hey, you need to empty this," and then you empty it. And some people have bought additional trays, so they would take one tray out, put the empty tray back in, hit the continue button, and it keeps going. For folks who just have the one, that's fine too. They take it out, they empty the tray out, put it back in, and hit the continue. So while the individual is off making any sort of physical organization or putting the physical cards away, the machine can keep running. So that's essentially how it's going to work, and it's going to keep. It really is just going to keep going until something prevents it from to continue running. So.
how does it know if a slot's full?
It's counting. So
Oh,
it's very yeah, so right now, it's a very rudimentary way of saying like, okay, well, it remembers which slot each different card has gone into, and it remembers how many cards have been gone put into the individual slots. The alphabetical, of course, that one's easy because it's just A to Z, and so it can pick
right.
it. Um, but the ones where if someone wants to scan or sort cards by, let's say, card type, The order of the cards that are put into the machine really dictates the order of placement of the cards in the tray. So, for instance, if you're processing it once, the first time you might have creatures and artifacts instance. And yeah, I'm talking Magic Gathering because that's what
Sure.
I know the most.
Sure.
So yeah, creatures, artifacts, instance. It'll put them in that order. Now, let's say you start a completely different batch, and now you've got enchantments, artifacts, sorceries, instance, right? So it'll remember what card type was put into which tray, and then it'll keep putting cards into that tray, and again until it can't. And the cool thing about the set type or the set or type color organization is that if it fills like the creature tray, for instance, or the creature slot, for instance, then it'll go to the next available slot if one exists, and it'll start to try to fill that one. Now, creatures instead of being in slot one, now creatures are in slot 6, right? And it'll continue from there, and again until it can't.
Well, yeah, that's a great point. So like the dreaded S slot, I know I messaged you about this before.
Yeah, yeah.
In terms of that, it sounds like if there for folks that don't know what we're talking about, when you alpha sort cards, S is the number one, most populous cards. So while you may only get one H or two G's or five B's, you might already have 20 S's. So would it fill other spots in the tray? It sounds like it would be challenging to make one slot bigger because if it's counting, it has to remember that there's a bigger slot. Yeah, all of that.
Yeah. So I tell you, this alphabetical tray has been the bane of my existence since the beginning of this project. So, when working with the engineers, one of the engineers had an idea because he had the exact same thought as what you did. He'd be like, well, the proportion of cards by letters is heavily weighted to the S slot, for instance, right? At least in Magic the
Yeah.
Gathering. And I mean, I can even see, when I have like, my whole, my cards of my rares and mythics, in a box, the S and all the colors is always the biggest slot. So he's like, well, so what he did is he took all of the words in the English alphabet and he analyzed them to try to determine how many times the words appear, or the letters, the first letter appeared the most for all the words in the English dictionary. And he adjusted the tray like that. And it's a really cool idea. And I'm like, this isn't going to work though. And the reason I said that was that, one, we're not building this just for, Magic. We're not building this for one trading card game, right? Not just for Magic. We're building this for everything. And then it's like, if the slots are different values, okay, what if, has Wizard of the Coast decides to come out, and now all of a sudden, someone has an idea that everything starts with a Q.
Yeah.
Now it's like now someone's gonna be stuck with that, and they're gonna get annoyed by that. So I thought that the lesser of all evils is just make them all equal. That's not working either.
Yeah.
So what we're going to try to do is we're actually going to combine some of the letters
Yeah.
that are least likely to appear in sets. Like the Q's and the
P and
W's, or
Q.
right, Z for that matter.
Yeah.
And we're going to reduce the size of about 5 to 8 of the letters to be able to increase the size of all the rest of the slots.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter too much, if like really I could have every single bin be its own size, and we could program that in, and the machine will know it and it'll be fine. But by changing the space for some of the less popular letters, we can increase the space in all of the other letters, which we're hoping will help as well. And I also mentioned that we're looking to potentially offer like a larger tray as well, but doing a lot of larger tray has a lot of implications through the rest of the machine, from how the mechanics move the tray and move the sled to the weight of the machine. It's like, what if I make
Mm-hmm.
a the tray that's twice this long, right?
Yeah.
Now I put the tray on one end of the machine. Well, now, and let's say it's full, it's going to be a lot heavier on that end, right? Is the machine going to tilt? Is it, can the motor, handle moving that? So those are all things that we need to consider before we kind of make a final decision on this. But we are dedicating a whole phase to the next project to look just at the trays and the tray sizes, and the alphabetical tray is one of the big things that we're going to be looking at.
Yeah,
So
no, and
we're
you make a
looking at
great point. Yeah,
it.
you make a great point with certain, like for example, magic sets may be, heavier to one letter. So I forget what recent set it was, but I remember it was early in the alphabet, like B through E, and I'm just like, all of these cards start with a B through E for this. Like it was wild, and that can happen.
Yeah,
Like I remember
yeah,
I'm sorting
yeah.
over here, and I'm like, wow, are the C piles like really high? And it makes no sense.
Right,
So it's
right,
like the
right.
theme of the set, it's everything starts with a
Yeah,
C. But yeah.
right.
So with that,
Well, and then
yeah,
also, oh, yeah, sorry if I may as well. I
sure,
also do want to point out that, one of the other things that we wanting to do from a mechanical perspective is that, we talked a lot about the trays and, the movement and stuff, but we're also wanting to make it a lot faster.
yeah,
The current machine, processes cards about or it'll sort an alphabetical tray about 300 cards per hour, which is it's slow, right? But the reason it does that is really where the the card identification is super fast, right? We're talking, sub 1 second analyzing time to be able to get it up to the API and back to us. And then the sled itself, we had implemented a gear system that is very similar to like a 3D printer. And if you're familiar with 3D
sure,
printers, they have to move up and down, and they have to be very, very precise about how much they're moving within the to be able to create the proper 3D print. So we thought that when we were building a machine that we needed a similar type of precision.
yeah,
And so we're like, well, this will give us that because we can move the tray, just a very little bit of amount, right, without much effort. Um, but the side effect of this was that when we're moving the tray, the gear has to move so many times for the tray to be able to move from one end to the other. So we're going to actually be changing that to more of a pulley system, where we're shifting we're basically using a pulley to move the sled in the tray. That's going to be much, much faster, and that's going to cut a lot of our time down, at least 20, 30, maybe 50%. So we're anticipating to be able to hit like a 300 card alphabetical sorting and maybe like 30, 40 minutes or so, something like
wow.
that.
The crazy thing is we were really in phase there on our questions. I was literally going to ask you how many sorts per hour it can do. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, right,
But
right.
300 is really good. I mean, that's still
Yeah.
solid. And then, hey, if you're able to get it to 300 every 30 minutes, I mean, that's incredible. I think one last question on the hardware is how loud is it? How loud is it now? How loud do you expect it to be? Maybe some folks may be running these in bedrooms or, in
Mhm.
common areas, and, maybe you're trying to understand how loud it is.
Yeah, so as with most prototypes that get built out there, they're usually over-engineered and bloated, right? We're like, okay, let's put all this stuff in here to make everything work, and then we can always take stuff out because it's much easier to take things out than it is to put more things in, right? Especially
Sure.
from I remember I asked the engineers, I'm like, okay, yeah, we need more infrared sensors. And they're like, where do you want me to put that? And something as simple as it's like it's very small, but there's implications with like wires and everything like that, and mounting brackets and stuff. But anyway, so we put a lot of stuff. So the current machine, it's a little loud. It's from like the movement of the rails to the actual movement of the cards from the hopper. It's louder than we want it to be. So we are changing a lot of that, and we're going to put some more cushion. We're going to put some cushioning around some of the rollers so that you're not hearing a lot of the vibration or the hitting on the different plastics or on the metal. So the end result is going to be, like it's going to make noise. It's going to be like a low hum, maybe similar to like a label printer or an actual like paper printer, when it's processing items through it. So it's going to be a low hum. It shouldn't be too loud where you can't have a conversation around it. And we'll do some decibel testing with it to see if there's places that we can reduce some of the noise. But yeah, it shouldn't be too loud.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's great.
Yeah,
A couple more questions I have on the list here, Jonathan. If you
yeah,
have
go
some
for it.
time, one,
Sure.
I think is surrounding, more on the API, how your software works. I know you can't give away the secret sauce, but I think there's just so much interest to understand, like, can I use this to deploy my cards to my own website instead of, TCG
Yeah.
Player or something like that? Or can I have my own, all of these types of add-ins and things? So I don't know if you're able to kind of give a little more detail.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't mind talking about as much of the product as we can, and some of the stuff we're doing behind the scenes. Obviously, if there's something a little too proprietary secret, what we won't drill into it. But we're also not trying. We're trying to create a product that's for the community, right? I mean, we are players. We're sort of collectors, but we're players at heart, right? So I welcome any and all questions that everyone would have. As far as like the way that the API works, so right now it's a closed system. We've gotten a lot of requests from folks asking if we can open source access to the platform or give them ability to potentially redirect the images from, instead of it being stored on our system, maybe to a local web server that they're running on their network, or they want to be able to access the images that are taken during the scanning and stuff. And so all of that is stuff that we are considering. For day one, we're committed to what we've promised, right? Which is we'll take a picture of the card. We analyze it, we identify it, and we store all that data within our network. And then from our web portal, someone can go and they can download and access a CSV file of all the cards that they have scanned, and they can use that to import into tools like eBay, TCG Player, which I know eBay owns TCG Player, but just for example, or they want to put them into like Architect or Deckbox, something like that, right? There's a lot of those different tools out there. So that's our commitment for day one. What we are going to also look into is potentially giving access to the images, or allowing folks to route their scans to a different system, whether it's by posting the to a different webhook. So we post all the information to a different webhook, which someone who's a programmer might be able to then take that information and decrypt it, or decrypt it, and de-encode it to be able to use it for something else. Those are things that have a lot of downstream implications that have to be built into the system from both, from a software side, but then also potentially from a hardware side. So, I remember I had one person ask me like, "Hey, could I just put a USB stick in here and then I tell it to save all the scans to a USB?" It's like, well, yeah, but now I have to build an accessible USB port, right? Which is not impossible. It's just something that we would have to do. So those are all things that we're going to look into. I have a very, very long list of feature requests that people have given
Sure.
us,
Yeah.
and we just keep adding to it. And at this point, we want to make sure that we deliver on what we've promised, because that's the key. And then we're going to start working on iterating through feature enhancements and software upgrades and things that like other people are wanting. And it's all going to be community based. So if there's a lot of people in the community that are asking for one thing over another, we're going to prioritize that over, something else. So we're going to be working with people, asking people, what they want, and keep sending us questions, keep sending us, feature requests, and we are logging them, and we'll get to them as soon as we can.
Yeah, no, that's great. The one questions really quick. This one's a little longer. The one thing that I still get constant questions on is, hey Steve, what happens if I buy this and in a couple years the company goes under? And to me, I know this is a lot more reasonably priced than thousands of dollar systems, but it's still a lot of money. And
Yeah.
to my answer normally to this is every day that the Kickstarter's growing, I look at
Mhm.
that as more solvency, so to speak, of the organization and the length of time that you can guarantee operations and parts. So I wanted to see if you could talk to that and maybe even talk to like right now as it's looking and funding and all of that. How long do you feel you have solvency for if everything collapsed type of thing?
Yeah, great question. And yes, we get that question, a few times. We got a little bit more at the beginning, but
Yeah.
so with with the success of the Kickstarter, we've proven that there is a desire for this product or product like this. It makes us attractive to investors because we've already proven that there's over 3,000 people that want to buy our product, right?
Right.
We've got over 3,000 pre-orders right now. I have investors that are eager and interested in joining, in Cardmill, which we haven't started pursuing yet because we haven't needed to, right? But then also we haven't wanted to give up as much control of it. But
Sure.
there is the potential option for bringing on outside investment, from a financial perspective, that could help guarantee more long-term stability. We Before we make any sort of promises and commitments, we want to see how successful the Kickstarter is. Now the Kickstarter funds is they're it's gonna be spent very fast, right? I mean, it's going
Sure.
to a lot of stuff, not only the manufacturing, but it's also going to sustain the business for years to come. One of the biggest expenses that we have is the cloud computing function, right? I mean,
Yeah,
we talk
for
about how
sure.
great, these AI models are and talk about how great this API is, but all of that costs money and we're covering all that cost.
Yeah.
It's while other platforms out there are charging per scan fees, they're doing that to cover the costs of their infrastructure. We're doing that ourselves. We're covering that, and we're happy to be able to do that for for all the Kickstarter backers, as they've helped to show that this is really a product that they're wanting. So we're covering all that cost, and we're going. The number one thing that I'm going to be trying to find ways to be able to reduce our spend on, because that's really where the most of our finances are going. But if in the very unfortunate event that Cardmill does have to fold or it's no longer successful, right? I've committed to the community, that we'll do what we can to ensure that the machines work without us, and that's where some of these open sourcing, the software requests have come in, right? And I think a lot of people are somewhat weary about Kickstarter and new businesses, right? And they're like, well, I'm a developer. I could build an API that connects to the card mill that I can make available to not only myself, but maybe to other people. And I think that there's a lot of people in the community that want to do that. And, we see that through, these discords, through,
Yeah.
these websites and through, YouTube videos, right? That, people like yourself are putting on, you're trying to engage a community. There's a huge community around that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people that would be able to pick this up and keep going should something happen to us. And our commitment, as always, is and always will be that if we're if we get to the point where we're no longer around, well, we're going to do what we can to give access to the community so that they don't so that they can continue using their devices. At that point, it may require that there's other people in the community that build some sort of a web service or some sort of an API or website or something that connects to it, but it wouldn't be dependent on the Cardinal system anymore. And so that's what we want to do. But of course, we're not planning for that yet because we're in a
Sure.
very, very good position right
Yeah.
now. especially with how successful this Kickstarter has been. That I'm really I'm working on budgets that take us into the next 3, 4, or 5 years.
Yeah.
And of course, I can't plan everything 5 years down the road, but we can still project, and we can have our hopes, and it's looking really good. And we're also
Yeah.
going to be doing this isn't the end for us. It's not that we're going to build this version of the card mill and then we're going to stop everything we're doing. We're going to do direct sales from our website, because I really believe that once people start getting this in hand, there's there's going to be a large surge of people that are like, oh my god, this actually works,
Yeah.
and they're going to want to get it. So there's going to be a lot there from direct sales on our website in early 2026. Other products that we're going to be building, from other machines to other tools to be able to help support the collection and the organization space. So there's more coming from us after we've successfully delivered this version of Cardmill.
Yeah, what an answer too. I mean, that's very thorough. Yeah, I think that should help. With any concerns folks have. And
Yeah, I
to
hope so. And
yeah.
like I said, we want to be transparent, right? So if someone has questions, please just ask us. We'll talk about and we'll share what we can, and we'll tell you if we can't talk about something. And but we're you know everyone knows how much money we have,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, for sure. And just to put it in perspective for folks, I mean, you can probably get two of these machines on Kickstarter for the same price as one Spider-Man collector booster box. So
So I am happy that so what was it, maybe about 3 months ago, a store was collecting pre-orders, and I'm just like, okay. So I went and I pre-ordered, and I see the prices now. I'm just like, man, I am glad I got it then, because I got it for my son. My son, like at the
oh,
time, my son was a huge fan of Spider-Man. He's not so much anymore, but we'll see when he like
it
as
might
we get more
revitalize it when
boxes.
it comes in. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I'm also not so sure I might give it to him anymore because of how expensive
Oh,
they are.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. So while you have, folks concerned about that, at the same time, you rip half of Spider-Man collector booster box. That's a card mill machine right there. It's like it's crazy.
Right, exactly.
So
Yeah, exactly.
last question I have, Sorcery. I know
Yeah,
your guys have been doing a great job running some polls on identifying community interests and stuff. And, obviously there's a large sorcery following on my channel, and,
right.
a lot of people are interested. So kind of want to see where things stand and what your thoughts are.
Yeah, of course. So I'm actually pulling the poll up right now to try to see what where sorcery lands in our list right now. But so sorcery, when the current poll, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's fifth in the list right
All right.
now. And so our plan is to support everything that we have in the poll. One Piece, no surprise, is the number
Yeah, no
one
surprise.
requested game. Yeah, definitely no surprise. But we're going to support all of the TCGs. Definitely going to support Sorcery.
That's
You
great.
have graciously offered to send me, a bunch of sorcery cards that we can help test with. I've also ordered some fresh packs off of TCG
Oh,
Player
did yeah,
just the
wow.
other day as well. Yeah, so I've got some coming in. I got stuff coming in from you. So we 100% will support Sorcery. We're prioritizing, the order that we do them based off the community feedback and some of this poll, but it's definitely 100% coming.
That's great. Anything you want to leave folks with here today? Any lingering thoughts or ideas you want to share as we kind of end?
I think that the big thing for me is that I'm grateful for the support and the engagement and the questions and the challenges that the community has been sending our way. Everyone has been amazing. Some there have been some people that are uncertain, and are challenging everything we're saying, which I welcome and I appreciate. Because I think that it only makes us a better product as well, to be able to, like, I can't have everyone be a yes man, right?
Yeah.
So I think leaving the community, leaving all of your viewers with is just like, thank you for all of the support we've received to date, and the conversations we've had, and we look forward to many more of these conversations coming in the future.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks to have you. And again, for all the viewers, I mentioned it at the beginning of the video, but I also want to mention it now. Jonathan is offering you guys a special discount off of the Kickstarter. If you go to cardmill.com/philosophercards, it'll take you to the Kickstarter page where you log in and you'll see a secret pledge. And that will be the heavy lifter bundle at I believe $50 off, which is a great discount and great for you guys. So I really appreciate you doing that for the viewers, Jonathan.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Well, thank you so much. And here's looking to the next week.
Yeah, definitely. Good luck as you come into the close here next week, and I'm looking forward to seeing the success on next Friday, and hopefully we can touch base afterwards and see how you're celebrating and what the next steps are. So excited to talk to you again.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Steve. Talk soon.
See you, Jonathan.
Digital age we're living in, treasures hidden in the packs we win, pictures on cardboard thin, fighting scalpers till the end. Holograms that shine so bright, sample packs just drop from sight. In the shuffle I can't win, every pack is cursed with sin. I'm trying to preserve history, in these cards contain my prophet destiny. I refuse to let them win, the time for scalpers now must end. I'm trying to preserve history, in these cards contain my prophet destiny. I refuse to let them win, the time for scalpers now must end. I'm trying to preserve history, in these cards contain my prophet destiny. I refuse to let them win, the time for scalpers